Alrighty, we are back with insider betting. UFC 308 is this weekend. Max Holloway takes on Ilia Topuria, and we got a couple other big fights on the card as well. We'll get all into it in just a second. But first things first, Jesse, how's it going, brother?
Doing great. Very excited for this card. Happy to be back again with you, and just very excited whenever there's a UFC event, especially a pay-per-view that's going to be over by like 4 p.m. in Los Angeles, and I can enjoy my Halloween party and everything over the weekend. I'm stoked. So let's do it.
Yeah, no, I feel it. I love these Abu Dhabi cards. First of all, the Abu Dhabi cards, we get sick fights a lot of the time. But yeah, I love that they're like it's on a 1 p.m. Central Time for me, and I'm stoked. It's gonna be done by like 4 p.m. or whatever, 5 p.m. and we're gonna have the whole evening to ourselves.
Dana's doing everything he can to appease to that side of the world and make sure that they get their certain stipulations in place. So it's like the one pay-per-view that you would see on that side of the world on a different time zone where they would actually like agree to start it at 11 a.m. Like you wouldn't see that for UK, you know?
No, dude, look what happened in the UK, right?
Exactly.
Like, they were there 5 in the morning.
Exactly.
But anyway, let's get into some of these fights because I'm pretty pumped about them. First things first, the first fight of the main card, or this might actually be the feature fight on the prelims. I'm not 100% sure.
I think it is.
I think it's the feature fight on the prelims. Yeah. But we got Jeff Neal versus Rafael dos Anjos. Sorry, I don't know why. I noticed. Yeah, no, I noticed a spelling error in Jeff Neal's name, and it just threw me out.
Oh,
two F's. Yeah.
GEOFF.
But we got Jeff Neal versus RDA. Coming into this fight, it's like it feels like it's like older versus older, or old versus older. We got I want to say like a striker versus grappler, although they're all pretty good all around. I feel like Jeff Neal should win this one, but I really wouldn't touch this fight with a 10-foot pole. Like Jeff Neal here he's a -300 favorite. There's no value in betting in him. I just feel like the younger guy, these two, is going to win. I think that, I think Jeff is just likely going to have a bit better cardio. I think he's younger. He might have a little bit more in the tank than RDA would. And yeah, so I'm just leaning towards him. But yeah, he's also got good takedown defense. So I think if you're RDA here, that might be a little bit of a struggle. But yeah, I don't care too much about this fight. I think Jeff Neal's going to pull it out of the bag though.
Yeah, this is one of those fights where it's like these are two great names fighting each other, but it doesn't feel like a big fight at all. If I'm being honest, it just kind of feels like both these guys need a fight, and so we're getting it. They threw it in Abu Dhabi. It's like doesn't make a lot of sense. Why is this fight in Abu Dhabi? This is a weird fight, Adam. I'm not gonna lie. Like, what is this fight? I don't know what the purpose of it is.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I think it's a thank you to them. No, it's a thank you to them because when these fighters go to Abu Dhabi, the princes just give them all these gifts. So the UFC might not be paying them more, but they're getting more by being there. Right. So it's like, thank you for being part of the game for so long. You guys need a fight. Come fight in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, no, have you seen how these guys are getting welcomed in Abu Dhabi? Like they have the dudes with the swords, like singing the songs for them as they walk in. It's awesome. It's so cool.
It's great. It's great.
They're treated like kings over there. By the way, this fight is not the feature prelim. This fight is second to last on the prelims. Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Cerqueira is fighting as the what? How is that?
No, that I think that just got announced today. Well, I'm actually not 100% sure because I was on the UFC site yesterday and it was the feature prelim, but I guess that was just updated.
That is weird. Okay, so either way, I'm more interested in this fight than the Ibo Aslan fight. Although Ibo Aslan, he might be good. Time will tell with that. But for this fight, I'll be quick about it. I like both these guys. Rafael dos Anjos feels like he's just kind of collecting his money fights now at the end of his career. Maybe he's gonna go in and do some like professional grappling to, win his post UFC career. I don't know how many fights he has left, but this feels like Jeff Neal's to lose, and I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about like betting line, money line versus like decision. Decision versus like finish. I kind of like finish here because Jeff Neal, his only loss, like he's really good, man. He's still kind of in his prime, and like his recent losses were a split
Unreal.
decision to Ian Gary, who might be a champion in the next year or two, and Shavkat Rakhmonov, who he was beating up at points in that fight, and then got submitted with like 45 seconds left. So like I don't know, like I kind of like Jeff Neal by finish here. I just feel like he's on another level of than RDA right now. That's my take on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Jeff
But
Neal's he's interesting, man. Like I think he beat Bilal back in the day. Yeah, I'm here in Dog, and he beat him way back in like 2019. He seems to like beat fighters you'd expect him to beat and fight, and then loses to fighters you'd expect him to lose to. That's just kind of his record. Like he's lost to Ian Gary,
Gatekeeper.
Shavkat, yeah, Wonder Boy, and then he's
Yeah.
beat Vincente Luque, Ponzinibbio, Mike Perry. Like he just beats kind of He loses to the really good guys, beats the better guys.
Yeah, and he's a good fighter. He's
Yeah.
a properly ranked fighter who's never
Yeah.
going to be champion. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
what it
No,
is. I like Jeff
100%.
Neal a lot. Got a good
Yeah.
story too, by
But
the way.
yeah. But before we open up the main card, do we have a DK Addery to go through today?
We do.
We do.
Yeah, you go ahead.
There it is. UFC 308 is coming right up, and it might be one of the easiest cards to predict in 2024. Luckily, Inside Fighting has partnered up with DraftKings one more time. So all new customers who bet $5 will receive $200 in bonus bets. Just imagine the parlays. All you have to do is download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, use code INSIDEFIGHTING to receive your promo offer today.
Hell.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
I actually got the sickest parlay coming up at the end of the episode. It's it's a 10x return, and it's a 6-leg parlay, and it's all favorites. So it's pretty crazy.
And it has nothing to do with the fight we just broke down. So
Yeah, yeah.
because there's a common theme coming here for this Abu Dhabi card. Some of you might be able to guess, but
yeah. So we'll touch on that in a second here, but yeah, no, DraftKings always hooking it up for the fam.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, let's open up the main card here. We got SHARA Bullet versus ARMEN PETROSYAN. SHARA Bullet, he was hyped up as all this and all that coming into the UFC. He was this striking machine, knocking out absolutely everyone that gets in his way. And he's had 3 fights in the UFC. He's won all 3, and he's gone 0 knockouts. He's beaten Mikhail Oleksiejczuk recently and Tricoli. I don't know. SHARA Bullet, he's an unbelievable striker, and you see him, the way he moves, you can just tell how fluid he is in his movement and all that. But he just hasn't been what we've expected him to be, I feel like, he's still really fun to watch, but yeah, I'm still going to go with him to beat ARMEN here. Just because I think he's the better overall fighter. But he just hasn't really been what we thought he was going to be coming into the UFC, I think.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, dude, I'm just going to be honest right now. I agree with you about everything you said about how Magomedov SHARA Bullet has clearly showed some flaws in his game, takedown defense, not amazing at grappling, all that stuff. But they did not set him up with a guy that is much of a submission threat here. No. This dude is 8-3, and I'm sure he's good. I don't know much about him, but he doesn't have any submissions on his record from what I can see. Everything is punches and body kicks in terms of his finishes. And who does punches and body kicks better than SHARA Bullet right now? I think SHARA Bullet could potentially be one of the best strikers in the UFC right now. And that's, I'm not saying he's one of the best fighters in the UFC right now. I'm just saying he's one of the best strikers. If this is a striking match, I'm just like, I'm hammering this money line all day, -155. I love those odds. I think those are incredible odds. And I think by knockout is an interesting bet too. So I don't know. I just feel like this fight is kind of a layup for SHARA Bullet, if I'm being honest. This dude has no grappling threat at all.
Yeah, that was my first thought as well. And then I was looking at some people analyzing this fight online, and some people said that it might actually be a tougher matchup for SHARA Bullet than I think it is. But I don't know who ARMEN is. I think +1, like SHARA only being a 155 favorite seems super low. I think he's been like minus 300 or plus going into all of his other fights. But yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting fight, but I think Charbonneau's going to get it done. I really do hope we're going to see a knockout though, because he has been pretty disappointing.
Well,
And
yeah, the knockout that he got in his last fight was kind of like, okay, what took you so long? You know what I mean? Like he had Tripoli like on the road. I think it was Tripoli. Was that who he
correct.
fought?
Yes, sorry. He did knock out Tricoli. He does have that, but it was
But
so underwhelming because like in the third round, Tricoli was like on a few days notice and he had to fly all the way to Abu Dhabi from the US.
yeah,
It was like, yeah.
and he was like gassed too by the end of the fight, clearly not ready. It was just like it took him way too long to finish that dude. So I agree with you.
Yeah. He did look better against Oleksiejczuk, but still not what we want to see from him.
Nope, I agree.
Yeah. But
But
anyway,
did you see, by the way, sorry. Did you see
yeah.
that he got a chance to meet Michael Bisping though?
I saw it pop up on my feed and then I didn't get a chance to watch the video. I got distracted. But I think that's like his inspiration, right?
Yeah, I'm pissed at myself. I meant to post that, but like Michael Bisping, who fought half blind for a good
Yeah.
chunk of his career, this dude who's half blind probably can't fight in the United States or any sanctioned body in the United States. We don't know yet. That remains to be seen, but it seems like he's only fighting on these Abu Dhabi cards. So it's very likely he's unable to fight in the United States. But very cool to see him meet Michael Bisping.
Super cool. Yeah, I mean, it's the only person he can look up to in that sense,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, but how crazy is that to be half blind going into these fights? Can you imagine how good he'd be if he could see fully?
Well, that's why we sort of have to maybe sometimes grade him on a curve a little bit when it's like, oh, he didn't get a finish. Okay, well, I mean, he's also fighting half blind,
Yeah,
so
like he
like
can't see a whole
maybe,
side.
yeah, exactly. We can be a little sensitive to it, but at the same
Yeah,
time, this is fighting, man. It's like
it
this is what
doesn't
you signed
matter.
up for, so it is what it
Yeah,
is. Yeah,
you don't get to be a champion on a curve, right?
yeah, exactly. No, that's the point.
So
Exactly.
so that's how it goes. But anyway, everyone's favorite, just kidding, Magomed Ankalaev is
Mm-hmm.
fighting Alexander Rakic. I actually do think that Ankalaev, like to an Ankalaev hater, they think he gets a lot more hate than he does. I think Ankalaev is actually liked by a lot of people at the same time as well because he's not like the traditional Russian Dagestani fighter that we see that spends the entire time grappling and whatnot, right?
Right.
He is good on his feet. He's extremely patient on his feet. I actually rewatched this fight against Johnny Walker.
Yeah.
And to start it off, like Ankalaev did a really good job just kind of like figuring out Johnny Walker's like just like crazy maneuvers, and he does like all his spinning kicks and shit. Like he got hit a couple times, he got a little rocked, but he waited it out. By the end of the first round, he was already looking better than Johnny, and then the second round was like fully for Ankalaev.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then you got Alexander Rakic. I really like Rakic. I think that it almost felt like I know you love Yuri here. Felt a little unlucky how his fight against Yuri went.
It did. It was unlucky for sure. I
Yeah,
agree with
but
that.
it's tough to call it unlucky. It's like it's unlucky towards Rakic, but it just shows like the sheer resilience and toughness that Yuri has, right?
Yeah.
So at the same time, it's hard to call it unlucky. But long story short, Rakic hasn't won a fight since 2021 against Thiago Santos.
Right.
I think that I just think Ankalaev is going to be too much for him. I think Ankalaev is the real deal. I also think that Ankalaev wants another title shot. I feel like he personally feels like he blew his first one against who was it? I think against Jan Blachowicz. Yeah. That one ended in a draw, right?
Yeah, that's the thing though, is like people forget like he should be champion. Or I mean, I guess what I'm saying is he should have been champion. Like a lot of people feel like he won that fight. The judges, I think that was just such an underwhelming result to that fight because of the way it played out. Like, but most people feel he won the fight. It just ended up being a draw because it was so underwhelming. Um, so it's like it's hard for me to look at Magomed Ankalaev in any other way. Like, oh, this dude should have been a champion at some point, even though I understand the criticisms that come with that and the criticisms that come with his fighting style, which is actually an exciting fighting style for a Dagestani, uh, you know, wrestling based fighter who's actually more of a kickboxer,
Yeah.
and that's the thing about him. it's interesting to me that people are talking about this like it's a title eliminator for both fighters. Like if Rakic beats Ankalaev, he gets a title shot. Rakic is 2-3 in his last 5. And I don't it's weird to me that he would get a title shot after this. I don't know. I feel like it'd be more likely that like Jamal Hill would fight Khalil Roundtree or something like that, and then the winner of that would get the next title shot. But like that, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, "What the fuck are you talking about, Jesse?" But I'm like, dude, this guy's 2-3 in his last 5, and he hasn't won a fight in what is it since
But I mean, at the
2021.
same time, Jamal Hill's coming off of a loss, and beating Khalil Roundtree wouldn't do much for him either, right?
Right, but Khalil Roundtree just had a great fight against Alex Pereira, and Rakic just lost to Yuri Prohaska, who lost to Alex Pereira.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know. I don't understand MMA math sometimes. It's very light heavyweights just continues to be a fucking mess. Feels to me like Ankalaev shouldn't have to take this fight right now, if I'm being honest. This fight should not exist. Ankalaev should either get the next title shot or like I don't know. I don't know what the other option would be, but it just feels like
Yeah,
this fight
it's a
is like an
tough.
unnecessary risk for him. You know?
No, but then you look at because I feel like as soon as you fight for the title, whatever you did before that kind of like resets a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
And not fully, but like when you look at Ankalaev, he drew for the title. He had a no contest with Johnny Walker, and then he beat Johnny Walker. And you know, Johnny Walker is not that impressive of a beat. So he hasn't necessarily like re-earned a title shot in any way, you know. And then
Yeah.
with Rakic's perspective, the reason that I actually would be on the other side, I do think that he would get the title shot. But the only reason I think he would get the title shot is because Pereira's beaten everyone in the top 5 already, besides
Yeah, there's
Ankalaev and
nothing
Rakic.
else.
So
Yeah.
it's one of these two has to fight Pereira next if we want a top 5 versus Pereira. And it just makes sense that the winner of this fight would get that, right? If he has to fight one of the two of them.
Right. It's just I get it and I understand what you're saying. I just feel like
It,
it's
it
just
does
a
feel weird. Like this guy comes off of 2 losses. He beats the number 1 guy and then he gets a title shot. I guess you
yeah.
get to beat the number 1 guy, but still
Yeah, I
weird.
guess. I mean, beating Ankalaev is no small feat, but like Paul Craig beat Magomed Ankalaev. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
and I understand Ankalaev wasn't the number 1 ranked fighter at the time. I get that. But you know, I don't
Yeah.
know. Like he got his title shot and in a draw. A lot of people felt like he won, and then he beats Johnny Walker, who's in the top 10. It's almost like why is Rakic number? It's more so like why is Rakic number 5? Maybe that's
Yeah,
my
it feels like
question.
he's a lot more. I mean, he's only fought once in the past little bit and it was a loss,
Yeah,
right?
he
Yeah,
lost
it
to
is
Yan
weird
in
though.
2022, and then he lost to Yuri in 24. So it's like
Yeah,
at
and then
UFC
his
300.
last win came in 21. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy that your number 5 guy in a division, his last win came 3 years ago.
yeah. I think that's my biggest problem with this. Like, why is Rakic
Yeah,
number 5? So,
yeah, yeah. No, I feel that.
anyways, but yeah, to go back to this, Magomed Ankalaev all fucking day. Like I'm going with
Yeah,
him to
I
win this
agree.
fight. Yeah,
Fucking bet the house on Ankalaev.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah,
I don't see it Rakic winning. But
yeah,
anyway, we got the feature fight of the night. We got Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. It's a tough fight for Ige. I'm not gonna lie.
yep,
Um, you know what? When I saw this fight, I was like, why is this guy who's 14-0 with 7 of those fights being finishes in the featherweight division here, um, fighting against a guy who's coming off of a loss or who's 3-5 in his last 5, right? And then he's coming off of a loss, and it doesn't feel like a big like challenge for Lerone Murphy. Like it feels like it feels like he should have a top 10 fight, is what I'm getting at. But at the same time, it feels like a thank you gift from the UFC for Dan Ige. And it's like, thank you for stepping up for UFC 303. Here's a chance to turn your career around by beating this undefeated guy. You know, and if you beat this guy, we'll give you a top 10, maybe a top 5, and then kind of restart your career from there. Um,
and if you lose, at least we gave you a nice week where you were treated like a king in Abu Dhabi.
and nobody expects you to win. So if you lose, like it's not that bad of a loss for you, you know?
Yeah,
Um, Ige is a dog, don't get me wrong, but I think that Lerone Murphy is just a better overall fighter, like literally in every aspect. I think he's the better grappler. I think he's the better striker. He's better at avoiding to get hit. If you look at the stats here, the only thing Ige kind of has on him is his takedown defense seems to be a little bit better. But yeah, I just think you have a guy who's better at everything than the other guy. So I'm obviously going to go with him. So I got LeRone Murphy at minus 270, which is a shame because I like Ige. But yeah, it's just a weird fight for him, I think.
Yeah, I think I like Ige. Or sorry, I think I like Murphy by decision. Only
Yes. Yeah.
7 of his 14 wins are by decision. 7,
Decision.
half of them are by knockout. So there's no submission threat here. This will be a stand and bang affair. Look, I'll say this about this fight. It's a weird fight. Again, it's weird fight placement. Like, why is this fight in Abu Dhabi? It's just a strange fight. Like, this fight could be like, this could headline an Apex card. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or it could also be like the opener on a Las Vegas pay-per-view or something. So, or UK pay-per-view, I should say. Ige is an interesting sprinkle. I mean, these guys are the same age, and Ige does have knockout power. I mean, if you look at his fights, like Dan Ige, it's sort of similar. 1/3 of his wins are by knockout, but another third of them are by submission. So I mean, he's like a finish threat here. Whereas LeRone Murphy, it's half and half and has no submission threat. So, like, if you want to do a little sprinkle on Dan Ige, I wouldn't blame you here because he does have a little bit more weapons, I would say.
Yeah.
Same age, same, like, Ige might have been through more wars than Murphy. That might be the problem here. Might have a little longer in the tooth for a 33-year-old, but I like Murphy in this fight. I just think Murphy by decision is the way to go.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I like your shout for this fight going to decision because I also had it over for whatever the rounds was. I have like a little note there that just says over rounds. I didn't even know what they set the line at, but I was like, I think it's going decision.
Yeah, this feels like a typical like high volume boxing match.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, like Dan Ige's 2 losses are against Diego Lopez and Bryce Mitchell. Like they're not bad losses.
No, and he gave both of those guys all he could handle. I mean, he almost beat Mitchell in the first round. He had him like hurt pretty bad. Like Mitchell, look at Mitchell's face after that fight, by the way. Go look at photos of that. He peppered him. And then Diego Lopez, it was like he took that fight, what was it, 3 hours notice? Crazy.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and he almost, he did a good job against him. Diego Lopez, who had a full fight camp, who's one of like the monsters at featherweight right now.
Yeah.
That's impressive, dude. I'm not going to lie. Very impressive.
Well, Diego Lopez won those first 2 rounds, probably.
I'm not saying like,
but I agree. He gave him a run for his money. Yes.
Yeah, it was like, Diego Lopez fucked up Brian Ortega. Like it's, he didn't fuck up Dan Ige. He just, pardon my language, he just beat Dan Ige.
Yeah. So. No, exactly. But you're right. This does feel like it should be like a headliner on the Apex. Like why is ANKALAEV versus Rakic the number 1 versus the number 5 guy below 12 versus 14? You know, it doesn't feel
weird booking on this card. It's interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, co-main event.
Oh yeah.
I made a TikTok about this fight the other day. I am fucking pumped.
This might be the second biggest fight of the year, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, this fight is I don't know. Whittaker looked unbelievable against Aliskerov. Aliskerov's only loss coming to Khamzat Chimaev. This is setting up this fight kind of perfectly. Robert Whittaker just looked like a different fucking animal in that fight. Like even like I know he always like mean mugs when he like walks to the octagon and stuff like that, but it just looked meaner. Like he looked more locked in. I don't know if that makes sense, but he did. Khamzat, the TikTok I made was about Khamzat landing in Abu Dhabi, and I'm like, the fight might actually happen. Breaking news. But yeah, like Khamzat, he holds the record for the quickest wins in the UFC, being 10 days apart.
Right.
And now it's impossible to get him in the octagon. It feels like. I know he's an unbelievable fighter. Even though we haven't seen him in a while, he really is as good as they say that he is. He gassed out against Gilbert Burns. It looked like Burns might had a chance to beat him. He did look better against Kevin Holland. And then his last fight against Kamaru Usman, he did gas a little bit, but he also, it looked like we've never seen somebody put a clinic like that against Usman in the first round,
He
even
also
though
broke
Usman
his
was on
hand.
short notice.
People forget he also broke his hand in that fight.
Correct. Actually, I did forget that. So good
Yeah.
reminder there.
Yeah.
But yeah, he killed him in the first round, but made his way back. But still, we've never really seen somebody fight against Usman like that, so it's still really impressive. I think Whittaker's 82% takedown defense is going to come into test here. I don't think he's going to be. I think he's going to decrease his average after this fight, most likely, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, I don't know. Like Whittaker is unbelievable. His last loss came to DDP, who's the current champion, and then before that, I think he lost to Vettori, if I'm not mistaken, who was at the time a title contender.
Yeah, Whittaker lost to Vettori?
Yeah, was that not it?
No, he beat Vettori. He beat
Vettori. He beat Vettori.
Yeah.
Sorry, he lost to Izzy. That was what I was thinking about.
Yeah. No, he beat Vettori in Paris, and then he lost to DDP next, I believe.
Yeah. So anyway, so Whittaker's resume is unbelievable, but yeah, I don't know. I think Chimaev's gonna be all over him. I think the relentless pressure. I think he's gonna come back better than ever. I've been seeing the footage coming out about Chimaev, and he just looks like an animal. He looks very calm. He looks at peace, and when you have guys at peace like that, they're just kind of different. So yeah, I got Chimaev all the way here at -258, which is a shame because I really like Whittaker. I'm probably still going to be rooting for Whittaker, but I do think Chimaev's going to get the win here.
Yeah, it's a tough fight to predict only because we don't know what version of Khamzat we're getting. We don't know where his health is at or any of those things. But everything that I've seen this week in terms of how he looks, feels, speaking, everything, he looks healthy. He looks like he's in a good place. And, Whittaker opened some people's eyes a little bit with that Alaskarov knockout, but I think also it just was Alaskarov wasn't ready for that fight. People might be overhyping that result a little bit. Alaskarov took that fight on short notice. He just wasn't ready for that fight. But it's interesting just because if ever there was a fight, this is the classic like MMA question of what if a karate guy fought, a Dagestani wrestler, right? What would happen? Well, that's the whole point of MMA. That's the whole point of UFC is like fights like this. This is it. This is the ultimate question. And Khamzat is obviously gonna like a massive favorite to win rounds 1 and 2. I would say. I think because this is a 5-round fight, so this is a long one. Khamzat, I think, needs to get a finish here. People forget like that Khamzat's this like huge submission threat. He's not. He has 5 wins by submission. He has more wins by knockout than he does by submission. He does have a high finish rate. Bobby Knuckles, if ever there was a fighter that could outlast the relentless pressure of Khamzat over a couple of rounds, it would be Whittaker. Like if he can gas out Khamzat, that's got to be his strategy. It's either early knockout right in like the first like minute or two, or it's just survive the pressure, gas him out, get the win. Pepper him in the later rounds. Because the only person here who's ever fought a 5-round fight is Robert Whittaker. So I'm going with Khamzat here, but like I think these odds should maybe be a little bit closer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's a little bit maybe more of a coin flip than we might realize, but I don't know. I just feel like Khamzat is destined to become a champion so long as his health is in order. And this could be the end of the line for Robert Whittaker contending for a title if this is it.
Yeah. I just think like looking back at the DDP fight, the pressure DDP put on Whittaker, and then he did get the TKO in that second round there. I think this version of Khamzat is better than that version of DDP. And I don't think that this version of Whittaker is that much better than the past version of Whittaker,
Yeah.
When he fought against DDP. So I do think there could be a finish here in the second round. I'd probably say second or third. I'd say probably not the first.
I'm interested in a second round finish. I'd be interested in that as like a sprinkle bet. But like, man, it's a tough one because I mean, Robert Whittaker, like, don't be surprised if he wins this fight. Don't be surprised. But
if this fight goes past the third, I would expect Whittaker to win.
It
but
starts to favor him for sure. It just depends on
yeah,
if he can get the finish, because like at the TKO or something, really gas him out.
yeah,
Because like I would guess Khamzat might be 30-27 on the scorecards by the time the third round is over. You know what I mean? Like that's totally
yeah,
possible. So
fair to assume as well.
yeah,
But anyway, main event of the evening: Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. The fan favorite Holloway. I think a lot of people are rooting for him. I'm rooting for him. I don't think he's gonna win, but I'm rooting for him. I think this kind of like what's it called? This revival of Holloway has been really fun to watch. His fight against Gaethje, unbelievable. Um, he's on a 2-fight knockout streak. Obviously, with that pointing down to the middle there with Gaethje, he knocked him out there. I hate to say it, but Ilia looks insanely good. I thought like when coming into the Volk fight, I was like, I think Volk might have him. It might be too soon for Ilia. These undefeated guys take a loss a little sometimes before they become champions. And he just looked incredible. He looked really fucking good. He's extremely powerful. The way he kind of throws it. He's probably one of the best, if not the best boxers in the UFC. The way he punches, he kind of puts all his body into it. He puts in a lot of power to them. I think that on that alone, I think he's gonna beat Holloway, but he's also a pretty good grappler. You see, he gets almost 2 takedowns per fight. He's got 92% takedown defense. I think the one thing that I've been seeing that Holloway might be able to do against him is that spinning back kick that he hit on Gaethje at the end of the first round. I think I've seen. I think Topuria, I forget who it was against, but he was dropped by a kick similar to that came onto the right side. So I think that if Holloway gets his kicks in place, he might be able to kind of do something to Ilia that we haven't seen. But yeah, no, I do think Ilia is going to beat him, and probably quite comfortably, I'd say.
Whoops. Yeah. So this fight's so interesting. This is like the biggest fight of the year in my eyes. Like this is the fight that
Yeah,
I've been wanting for months,
yeah,
and it's so funny. I made a prediction on the January episode of this show before we had a different host at the time, but on this show, I made a prediction that Max Holloway would be champion by the end of 2024. And the layout that I said was, or the timeline, the blueprint of this happening was that Ilia would beat Alexander Volkanovski, and then they would fight. Topuria and Holloway would fight in Spain to end the year, because I thought that Topuria would get a Spain card. That's what I thought was going to happen. Didn't happen that way. They're fighting in Abu Dhabi. And I predicted that Holloway would beat Topuria. I have to stick with that prediction because I made it back in January, even though I really don't believe it's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, I have to stick with it just because I made that prediction. I can't give up on it now. It's like I have to go with it. So I am picking Holloway to win, but this is what I'm going to say about it. Holloway's path to victory is similar to how Volk was fighting in like round 1 and 2 of the fight against Topuria, where Volk was landing a lot of jabs into Topuria. Like he had marks on his face at the end of that fight.
yeah,
Like he was wearing some damage. And what does Max Holloway do really well? He keeps you at a distance, and he just sort of like keeps peppering you with the jab over and over and over again. And he keeps you at a distance. He uses his length very effectively. He has a big reach advantage. Well, the reach isn't much of an advantage, but he has a height advantage, so he can use that. So that's going to be his path to victory. I think Holloway's only path is like a clear decision win. I think that's his path here.
yeah.
But I would say this: don't be surprised if Ilia Topuria submits Max Holloway in this fight, because there's a clear advantage that Topuria has, other than his power and his boxing, which is obviously awesome. Like his boxing, his speed is fucking incredible to watch. It's incredible. Like he looks like a professional boxer. Have you seen his house, by the way?
I was just gonna bring that up. You watch Embedded this week?
I'm
Fucking
making a
unreal.
post about it. I'm literally working on a post about it, and his house is insane. He like has a cryogenic freezer in his fucking house. It's wild. He has like a whole bed with him where they test his vitals and everything. It's wild. He's like a fighter built in a lab. But there's only one submission threat on this card. Topuria has some submission game. He submitted Bryce Mitchell, who's a great wrestler. I think I would put a little sprinkle on Topuria winning by submission here. I think that's a very interesting little sprinkle bet. And I felt this way about the DDP Adesanya fight too. And I just have a feeling we could see that happening in this fight.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree. I think I see the submission trend. I also wouldn't be surprised if this is the first time Holloway gets knocked down.
Well,
we saw
hold on. He did get knocked down.
But the Gaethje one didn't count.
They just didn't count it.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I'm saying the first one to count.
Right. But like that, I thought that was bullshit. I thought that he did get knocked down in that fight. I made a video about it at the time. It was like, come on, guys. Like, Gaethje just got knocked out. You're taking this knockdown away from him. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
go
ahead.
I agree with you. He did get knocked down, but he's going to get knocked down again this fight, and for realsies.
I agree.
But no, I think the submission threat is massive. I mean, he's got 15 wins. 5 of those are by knockout, 8 of those by submission. So we keep talking about how good of a boxer he is, but he's just as big of a threat on the ground as anything else.
He might be one of the most well-rounded fighters in the UFC. He probably is.
And a lot of the time with these guys, you see like you see somebody who's like really good at grappling, but they're not necessarily like a submission threat. And then other times you see somebody who's like a submission threat every time they're on the ground, but they might not be like taking you down necessarily. So like you'll take them down and then they'll work their way to a submission, right? Topuria will do both to you. He will take you down. He will out grapple you, and he will make you tap. So I do see the possibility of that, especially if the first round doesn't go how Topuria thinks it's going to go. If Topuria goes in there trying to box and he doesn't see the boxing route work as well, he's going to go straight to the submission game. I don't think Topuria wants us to go to decision. Like, I think he's looking to finish this before the end of the second round, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that that's good analysis, because I do see a scenario where like Holloway is going to get comfortable with the boxing a little bit, because they're going to exchange on the feet. Now, I know that Topuria said he's going to go in there and he's going to point to the ground in the first 10 seconds and that they're going to throw down like they did in the last 10 seconds at UFC 300. Don't think that's going to happen. But I do agree with you. Like, if this fight is leaning Holloway's way, he might get a little comfortable on the feet, and then Topuria can implement some takedowns, and then he's got him. And I think that's a clear advantage in this fight. Like, clear advantage goes to Topuria on the ground, and I could totally see it going that way.
No. Yeah, no, I agree and disagree with you in the same time. I don't see them just throwing down in the first 10 seconds. But I do think Ilia is going to come in there and, for jokes, point.
I do think he's no. I agree with that. I just don't think they're actually going to exchange.
Holloway's just going to on the edge there, and he's going to be like, okay, now let's actually fight.
Yeah,
not coming in here in the first 10 seconds, just throwing down with you to see who gets knocked out first.
I mean, this is a legacy fight for both guys, you know, in a sense. Like, for Topuria to beat Holloway after beating Volkanovski, like, 2 of the best featherweights ever. The 2 best.
Yeah, he's arguably beating 1 and 2 in the division all time.
Yeah, that would be like the next up would have to be Jose Aldo stepping up to back up to featherweight, and then then you can complete it, and then that's when the Conor McGregor fight comes in. No, this is a massive fight, and if Topuria does this, I mean, we're talking about like historic stuff for this dude, and him really like elevating from like superstar to like mega supersonic star. Like, this guy's going to another level if he wins this fight. So
yeah, it's funny. Out in Europe, I think he already is that mega supersonic star that it just hasn't caught up here.
I made the argument that I think he's actually like bigger than Sean O'Malley, like just because of his European base, and people push back on that. And I'm like, look, I understand like O'Malley's huge, but this dude is worldwide, you know? So
yeah, no, I do think that on like a scale of how many people know this guy and how many people are a fan of this guy, Topuria beats O'Malley. When it comes to how much dollars is this person bringing in, O'Malley still beats Topuria.
Probably, yeah. I would agree with that. Yeah.
But yeah. But anyway, that sums up UFC 308. I got the sickest parlay I've ever had, and I'm pumped to do it. I've already bet on this. we got the OVEV parlay of the week. We already know that all of these Dagestani Russian fighters have been taking over the UFC by storm. And this is our chance to bet on all the beard, no mustache guys in one card. UFC 308 being in Abu Dhabi, it's built for these guys. Everyone on this card, we got, I'm not even going to go out and pronounce these names. We got two Magomedovs. We got ANKALAEV, we got Chimaev, we got Nardiev, and then we got another. We got Renat. We'll go with that.
Fakretnidov.
Yeah, whatever it is.
I'm trying. Yeah.
They're all favorites.
Yeah.
The least of a favorite is a -142. The least. Yeah. The most we got a -245, -375, -270. We got some heavy favorites on this card, and it still generates a +969 odd. $100 gets you 1069.99. I think it's the easiest parlay of the year. I think this is going to hit. We've predicted it to hit on the on this episode on all of them. So yeah, well, I don't know, Jesse. I usually ask for your thoughts, but I think we're on the same page here.
Dude, I've said many times before, if I call it the OVEV bet, it's like it's not always going to win, but if you bet the fighter with the OVEV last name every single time, more often than not, you're going to win money, right? Like you're going to have a high winning percentage. So I'm hammering this, Adam. I love the parlay. I'm going with it.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Anyways, we will be back next week for UFC. Or I don't even know who's fighting next week.
I think it's an Apex card or something.
I think so.
Sure. Yeah.
I think so. I think it's Apex, and I think it's 309 right after. Oh, next week is the Edmonton card. That's
what it
is.
It's Edmonton next week. Okay.
It's Edmonton, yeah. So we got Moreno's fighting on that one.
Moreno Albazi, and then we got Apex Magny versus Prates, and then we got 309 Jones versus Miocic.
Hell yeah. But anyway, we will see y'all next week. Jesse, as always, it's been a pleasure, brother.
Yes, sir.